Okay, so we're going to talk about some data that I don't really do. It's just something I've come up with along the lines of analyzing the data that I really look at, and I'll kind of show you some of that at the very end. But anyway, so I guess the title is The Mind and Body Connection to Exercise and Learning. And, sorry. Oh, okay, here we go. So I had this simple idea as I was looking at the data. So, Americans have increased sedentary behavior over the last 50 years. But there's also been a decrease in academic performance over the last 50 years as well. Many of you who teach may notice this. There's an increase in obesity. The prevalence of obesity is high. It's about the same for men and women. And then there's some quotes from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation here that suggest that if we don't do anything about this, this generation will be the fattest generation. And then there's another quote from A Nation at Risk in 1983 that says something along the lines of, for the first time in the history of our country, the educational skills of one generation will not surpass, equal, or even come close to that of their parents. So are we actually improving at any of this? We've made a lot of changes to the education system, including reducing physical education and art. And so it turns out that no, we're actually doing way, way worse. We're failing miserably. And there's no evidence that academic achievement is realized by eliminating physical education from schools. In fact, it's just the opposite. Everybody that's actually looked at putting physical education into learning programs finds that they get significantly higher grades. And so the question is really, why aren't we putting physical education back into schools? It just seems so obvious, but yet we are still focused on science, technology, engineering, and math, and that's the issue. So we came up with a new/old hypothesis in that integrating exercise as a requirement for students at all ages will increase both health and school performance. So the question really here, though, from me, is what's the mechanism of this? So as a neuroscientist and as a former molecular biologist, I am interested in the mechanism. And so some of the evidence, it comes from studies on rehab models of stroke, spinal cord injury in rats that I worked on. And so interestingly enough, there's some molecules, BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, GAP43, that really have been shown to promote plasticity in the nervous system, right? And so in monkeys, it's been shown that when you teach a monkey to respond to a button press and a visual cue, that you increase BDNF in the hippocampus of the monkey, right? So this is interesting, right? So the learning area of the brain. GAP43 is another molecule that upon spinal cord injury, you can selectively show an up-regulation in this molecule after spinal cord injury when you do a forced training regime in the injured limb. Okay, so that's interesting. We've shown that these molecules can be upregulated in specific areas of the brain by studying and by moving. In contrast, what am I saying? Interestingly enough, we have also shown in humans that vigorous exercise increases BDNF concentration in the blood, but moderate exercise or lower does not do this, right? And so it's interesting. So it stands to reason that vigorous activity can not only help decrease the obesity epidemic, but it should also increase the academic problem. And so what we sort of propose is what we're sort of doing, and that's having people play these extra games that promote cognitive function. And so this is some of the data here. So we've shown that when people actually play these games, like kids really play them, and you have them play for 20 hours or so, they can get 9 METs or above, which is equivalent to running at about 10 miles an hour on a treadmill. If those of you that run a treadmill, that's pretty fast. So here's some of the changes that we see in a dual task reaction time. So this is a cognitive function which has to do with responding to a buzz. So this is Parkinson's subjects. This is young, healthy subjects. We see quite a dramatic change upon training at Stance Revolution. So my question is, what's going on in the brain, right? And so these are the techniques that we're using to try to figure this out. This is me going in the MRI. I've been in the MRI more than anybody here, I'm sure. This is an NIRS machine near infrared, so we can actually move around and see what's going on in real time. And I apologize for my arrows being out of place here, but this is some of the data that we've been looking at in the young, healthy people that have played DDR, and it turns out that there's a significant increase in blood flow to the areas of the brain responsible for learning, including the hippocampus. So what we think in terms of the next step is we want to really try this in a much larger scale. So we want to put it into all the schools in New York City, potentially, and see if we require kids to play Dance Dance Revolution, will we increase academic performance and decrease the obesity epidemic.